Today should be able to finish our chapter 19 and finish with a big bang, because this very first topic over here, faith, the mother of hope and charity, is just wonderful. I repeatedly say that there is not one paragraph, there is not one sentence in this book that is more important, that is more significant than any others. I sincerely, with all my heart, I might believe that every single word in this book is equally important and good. But of course, since the book is constant and stable, but we are not, right? We have our ups and downs. We have different circumstances in our lives. So it's very common that at one point in our lives, we find some things to be more relevant, be more important, but aware that indeed it's not. And I think that the beginning of this year, all the things that's shaking our lives, individual and in community, the small community and the large community, everything that's going on in this world today. But no longer the big macroscope world, the big nations and things, but these small things in our neighborhood that we see in the subways and things. I think this passage is quite relevant for our times. Again, not more important, but perhaps it catches our attention for the moment that we're living, these present days. So let's see what it says.
Okay. Okay. Faith, the mother of hope and charity. Number 11. In order to be profitable, faith must be active. It must not grow numb. Mother of all the virtues that lead to God, it must watch carefully over the development of the children it generates. Hope and charity are consequences of faith. These three virtues form an inseparable trinity. Is it not faith that provides the hope of seeing the Lord's promises fulfilled? Because if you do not have faith, what do you hope for? It is not faith that provides love, because if you do not have faith, what appreciation will you have? And consequently, what love? Faith, divine inspiration from God, awakens all the noble instincts that lead humans toward the good. It is the foundation of regeneration. Thus, this foundation must be strong and durable. For if the least doubt shakes it, what will become of the edifice that you build upon it? Therefore, construct the building upon unshakable foundations. Let your faith be stronger than the sophism and ridicule of disbelievers. For faith that cannot stand up to human ridicule is not true faith. Sincere faith is alluring and contagious. It communicates itself to those who do not have it, or even would not desire to have it. It finds persuasive words that go to the soul, whereas apparent faith uses only sonorous words and leave their listeners cold and indifferent. Preach through the example of your faith in order to give it to others. Preach through the example of your deeds in order to enable others to see the merit of faith. Preach through your unshakable hope in order to enable others to see the truth, the trust that strengthens and encourages you to battle all the vicissitudes of life. Therefore, have faith in all that it contains of beauty and goodness, in its purity and its reasoning. Do not accept faith that cannot be substantiated. The blind daughter of blindness. Love God, but know why you do. Believe in his promises, but know why you believe in them. Follow our counsels, but be aware of the objective we show you and the means we provide for you to reach it. Believe and hope without losing heart. Miracles are the deeds of faith.
Thank you. So this is period. I think it's Joseph, right? Yeah, Joseph. Um, he already starts with a very powerful statement. In order to be profitable, faith must be active. And again, we say that over and over and over again. The great example, of course, is Jesus Christ, who did come to write a book and live for us on what we should be doing, who did not send an army of good doers and tell them what to do. Christ came himself and thought through action. He acted charity. He did not simply spoke of charity. He acted in faith. He demonstrated to us what it means to be faithful, but not faithful as in believing. We discussed that at length last month, but faithful as in fidelity with something. And of course, in the case of Jesus, the fidelity with our Father God, fidelity to following his divine laws, fidelity to resist, to go against those laws, fidelity to remain faithful regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the pains, of the sorrows that comes to every human being, and at all times, at any circumstance, to maintain our fidelity, our commitment to live our lives in accordance to those laws, which can only be done in action. To have all the knowledge, to have all the understanding, and do not practice it is not only not useful, it's just plain wrong. Because in accordance to what we learn in this doctrine, to do nothing is to do bad. And especially if one have gained the understanding, if one have had the opportunity to learn and not practice, is definitely an omission, is definitely committing a sin in the meaning of missing the target. Because if we have had the opportunity of learn, of acquire knowledge and ability to perform some task that is useful, it then becomes our responsibility to use that knowledge to do those things that are useful for ourselves and to others. And in order to demonstrate our fidelity, we need to be active. We have to use the resources that we have to be productive. Is again going back to the parable of the talents. One receives 5, one receives 2, one receives 1. But what really means there is that whatever you have in your hand is an important, is a useful, is a good tool that Providence has placed in your hand for you to use it. To not use it is missing the target, is a sin. And, and faith could not be any different. We have talked about the previous conversations of what in this book they call the innate faith, right? Something that is a giving, actually, or the seeds of it is a giving. As I believe that God provides us the, the seeds for us to develop the trees, as I believe that the God give us the little push to initiate the momentum for us to keep on going. But from that point and on, it's up to us, because we have the free will and we have the intelligence and we have all the laws imprinted in our conscience. At this point on, we're going to make those trees grow within us in accordance to how we use our free will, our intelligence, and associate both of them with the divine laws imprinted in our conscience. So hope and charity are consequences of faith. And one would imagine, how could we have hope without faith? I find kind of hard. And we have the innate faith and we have that innate hope. We, going back a little bit, we go to more simple peoples throughout the globe and throughout history. They don't have that faith in our spirituality. We all have faith, a innate understanding that we are more than matter, that there is a non-palpable aspect of us that precedes and that proceeds the palpable, the flesh. Where does it come from if it's not that little seed that is a given to us? And because we are yet simple, we see all those seeds with not as natural within us. And that allows us to have hope, that allows us to make in our present a better future, that allow us to, in our present, go to the tribulations, go to adversities that life throws at us with an innate confidence that things are going to get better. It is actually pathological to think that things are going to get worse, that we are doomed. It's depression. Health human beings, they have that innate expect that things will actually get better, because if not, then suicide makes sense. Why should I keep going just things to get worse? But we have that innate desire, one may call it, of instinct of survival, right? But we can bypass instinct because we are human beings and you have reason, you have intelligence. And that's why people do bad things out there, committed suicides, commit crimes, because they let the reason, the thinking go beyond the instinct. Of course, they misuse that free will, they misuse their intelligence, they use in the wrong way and commit some serious crimes against the natural laws. But normally we don't have that. Normally we have the hope that we're going to overcome this and that and continue going. And what the Spirit also brings to us here, one of the great foundations for us to sustain that faith, to make that seed grow and develop in a strong, powerful tree is reasoning, is intelligence, is the association of the intellect with the intelligence of the heart, with the sentiments. So therefore construct therefore construct the building upon unshakable foundation, that your faith be stronger than the sophism and ridicules of disbelievers. For faith cannot stand up to humans' ridicule if it's not true faith. And true faith in this book we have seen is only the one that can survive with reason through all epochs of humanity, right? And there's the association of reasoning, is an association of thinking. And that does allow us to overpower the sophisms. You know, if what is a sophism? Is the fake news, basically, right? Is a statement that is untrue, that is false, but seems to be truthful, and is deliberately used to deceive people. Does it remind us of anything that is happening today throughout this globe? How do we protect ourselves against the wolves dressed in sheep clothes? How can we disguise them? How can we not become victimized by the false prophets? They are out there, and Christ warned us that, right? There shall be false prophets. There shall be wolves dressed in sheep clothes. Is it something that perhaps are we seeing today? How do we protect ourselves against them? If our faith does not have the foundation of reasoning of us associate with that belief that transformed beliefs into knowledge, and when you have knowledge, it becomes unshakable. And if we do have that, then we will not be victims by sophists. We will not be discouraged by those who seek to ridicule our power to stay on the path that Jesus teaches us to stay, even if it seems to be not the common practice, even if it seems to does not really belong to this world yet, even if we may perhaps let go of the opportunity to profit materially or financially for something else, to stand on our moral values regardless of what the material gain may be. Without faith, it becomes extremely difficult to do all those things. So indeed, faith is the foundation. It's the foundation that allows us to face all the adversities, that allow us to maintain dignity with courage to face all the strength, all the challenges that we have today, even to resist all the temptation that surrounds us in many different ways. So the suggestion of Joseph is for us to go and preach through our unshakable hope in order to enable others to see the truth that strengthens and encourages you to battle all the vicissitudes of life. Love God, but know why you do. I think that is amazing. Believe in his promise, but know why you believe in them. There is a tremendous association here, and I think Kardec brings this to this book because Kardec insists to us that have all that belief without foundations of reason, of intelligence, it's weak. We will not withstand the attacks that we will receive. But when we know, again, once you know, we cannot unknow anymore. But when you just believe, we can just believe and start believing something else. I think it's a wonderful passage that we really have to use as a tool to deal with the things that is happening to our lives, and if not to our lives in particular, thanks to the providence, things may change to us as well, but that we see around us, that we see throughout this world happening today. I think it's missing a little bit of faith, and it's not as missing a little faith in the big leaders who make the decisions out there. It's little faith in us, the common people living our lives, because we place those leaders to lead us. We have the leaders that we deserve. Any comments?
We remember that phrase from Francis of Assisi, right? Go and preach, and if necessary, use words.
Yep.
That's what they're talking about here, right? Lead by example. Those words can be misinterpreted, misheard, deceiving. And I think that the rational faith, which is one of the pillars of Spiritism, is very important for us to have it in mind, right? To believe, but know why you believe, right? It's that to know more than to believe, right? When we talk about, I believe in reincarnation, I know that reincarnation exists. It goes beyond that, right? We don't say I believe in the sun. We know the sun exists. We know what the sun does. So faith, and I think the understanding and knowledge of Spiritism, it's the first step. But if we don't bring it from the mind to the heart, then it doesn't really become true faith. It becomes it stays on the knowledge only.
And I think it's an important aspect. I've put a note over here. The word preach over here doesn't necessarily mean that to stand in the squares, on the subway stations, and scream out loud on what you believe. It doesn't mean that they suggest you to go and impose what you have learned. Is to act in accordance to what you have learned. That means more than words. Or live your faith, act in accordance to your faith. That's what we will impress others much more than so-called preaching as speaking. And then again, that's what Jesus did to us, no? No more comments. The last item in this chapter. Divine faith and human faith.
Yes. Divine faith and human faith. Number 12. Faith is the innate sentiment in human beings of their future destiny. It is the awareness they have of the immense faculties whose seed was deposited in them, first in the latent state, in which they now must make blossom and grow by their active will. Until now, faith has not been understood except from the religious aspect, because Christ extolled it as a powerful lever, and because he has been seen only as the head of a religion. But Christ, who performed material miracles, has demonstrated through these same miracles what humans can do when they have faith. That is, the will to wish and the certainty that such will can obtain its fulfillment. By following his example, did not the apostles also perform miracles? Well, what were those miracles except natural effects whose cause was unknown to humans back then, but which today have been largely explained and which will be fully understood to the study of Spiritism and magnetism? Faith is either human or divine, depending on whether people apply their faculties to their earthly needs or to their healthy or to their heavenly and future aspirations. Individuals of genius who pursue the accomplishment of some great enterprise triumphant if they have faith, because they feel within them that they can and must reach it. And this certainty provides them with immense power. Moral persons who believe in their heavenly future and who want to fill their lives with noble and beautiful actions in the certainty of the happiness that awaits them, draw from their faith the strength they need, thereby accomplishing the miracles of charity, devotion, and selflessness. Finally, with faith, there are no evil tendencies that cannot be overcome. Magnetism is one of the greatest proofs of faith put into action. It is through the faith that magnetism heals and produces the remarkable phenomenon that formerly were regarded as miracles. I will repeat, faith is both human and divine. If all incarnates were fully persuaded of the power they have within them, and if they wanted to put their will in the service of that power, they would be capable of accomplishing what until today have been called prodigies, and which are actually nothing more than a development of human faculties.
Thank you. So that comes from we protect the spirit, just not to reveal its name. Divine faith and human faith. As I just spoke about and we discussed before, there is this innate faith, and that would be what they call the divine faith over here. That is something that we come with for us to develop in association with reason into something strong that it will be indeed the mother of hope and charity. And by charity again, benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. For those who believe that they are able to be charitable without faith, I personally sincerely believe that they do have a faith that they do not recognize. And I can really don't see it's capable of being fully benevolent, indulgent, and forgiving without I have that faith inside of you to do so. And I think the cultural aspects, the misleading and this misinterpretation of the teachings of Christ have led individuals to kind of deny their own faith, because the presentation of that God, the presentation of that Christ does not meet reason. And again, without reason, things become difficult. And again, that faith that we are more than matter, that there are things that are actually even more important than the bottom line. We all have the initiation, the seeds of those values that are not quantified, but can only be qualified. That does not come with number, that does not come with a dollar sign, whatever. We have to understand that those things that are of much greater value, of all those things that are palpable here. Of course, when the faith weakens, we will allow those material values to overpower. And unfortunately, that's a problem that we all are facing. But when our faith is strengthened yet, then we put those unpalpable values above it. One of the things I have always said, and that lead me to my dislike towards religions in the beginning is, and it still does, is that I feel that Christ has been imprisoned that's being held hostage in churches and temples, and the better future of all of us will exert the liberation of this Jesus Christ outside of the temples, outside of the religions, that Jesus Christ may be the leader, leading us, not only in the church, but also in the enterprises, in the institutions, in the banks, in the governments, in the congresses throughout the world, in our daily decision makers, in every household, in every factory. And once Christ is liberated and is out there being the leader to our lives, then we will experience a heaven on earth. For as long as we put Christ, incarcerated Christ inside of a temple, inside a church, and when we go inside there, then we are Christians. When you leave over there, you also leave Christ as in there. Things are not going to work very well for us. But once we go over there to the temples, and when we leave, we bring Christ with us in our hearts and minds, and we act in accordance with the teaching of Christ, being a doctor, being a politician, being a soldier, being a carpenter or whatever, then we will establish peace on earth, which is our goal and which will happen eventually. But the sooner the better, of course. And as much as I understand, as much as I have read, I don't think that Christ came in here with say, I'm going to create a new religion. I'm going to create Christianity. As much as I understand, Christ says, I'm come to bring to the revelation of the loving Father, not the king, judge, cruel one. I'm going to bring Christ to our hearts now as a loving Father. And I'm going to invite everyone to live our lives in accordance to the teachings to the laws of this Father, his, who is all loving, all good, and all forgiving towards us. And once we understand that, we see that Christ is more than a religious leader, a religious person. He's a leader for humanity to live a life of happiness. And for that, we don't need to liberate Christ from the temples and from the churches. And he does that on the streets, creating what we used to call miracles, or we can still call miracles if we choose to, but have an understanding the miracles is a phenomenon that at the present time we cannot explain, that our science cannot explain. But you know of it, that eventually it will be understood. And the faith should and is somewhat out there. As when the Spirit says over here, individuals of genius who pursue the accomplishment of some great enterprise triumph if they have faith, because they feel within them that they can and must reach it. So if you have faith, if you are able to undertake a project without faith in our potential of accomplishing it, of deal with the problems that will be associated with reaching that final result, without faith, it's very unlikely they'll be able to do it. So we have to have some faith in ourselves, have faith in our colleagues, because very often do not work alone. We have to have trust, fidelity to the project, to the co-workers in that project, and then we'll be able to accomplish. Now, if our project is to reach a state of happiness in our society, we must have that faith that we can accomplish. And you have to understand it's not going to be easy. They're going to have to face tremendous adversity. But with faith, we can go ahead and do it. And some may call it a miracle. But we, Spiritists, we understand that there is such a thing, that whatever is happening now, even if we're not able to explain scientifically, we know that it falls into natural processes because nothing is supernatural. The supernatural does not exist. If it happens, it's because it falls within the laws of nature. Therefore, natural. But we're not yet able to understand. And magnetism, the Spirit says here, is one of the things that help us to restrain our faith. The witness of the successful sessions of magnetism, they witnessed things that was compatible with the miracles of Jesus. They were able to restore health to individuals that the science of that time could not do, that the medicine of that time could not do. They were able to perform things that could not be explained by the science of that time. If they did that then, why could we not do that now? We do, and we do more than we know. But those magnetizers, they had to have that faith. They have to have that faith in their potential of performing those things. They have to have that faith that there was energies. That's they call magnetism at that time, that could modify the elements that they are dealing with to accomplish their objective, to restore health. When all the science or the medicine of the time could not do, they were able to do it. Without faith, that would not be possible. Jesus did on the street demonstrate what was possible. Jesus did not say that was reserved for him. On the contrary, he told the disciples, go and do it. Now at 12 of you, no, you start, you go and do it. And Jesus is telling us today that we seek to be God's disciples. Go and do it. Okay, comments? Not.
I think the word faith, unfortunately, has been associated with religion too much, right?
So that what?
It's been associated with religion too much.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to go beyond that, right? To understand faith in a true belief in something that is possible, anything, right? When they talk here about the genius that pursue their accomplishment of some great enterprise triumph, they have faith. That's not religious faith, right? That's faith in their ability to develop and perform something. So I think that it's important here to stress that faith here is in the most ample sense, right? It's faith in the divinity, yes, but also goes beyond the religious aspect of it.
Yeah, and this faith in Christ is not as a religious leader, as the protective spirit tells us. Christ exalted it as a powerful lever, and because he has been seen only as a head of a religion, because Jesus is not a leader of a religion. Christ is leader of humanity. And we need again to liberate Christ from the religion, to let Christ out of the churches and the temples and this and that and be on the streets where he actually act, not in temples. Not as a religious figure, but one of us out in the streets doing all the good in the name of our Father. That is beyond religion. All right. Can you initiate another chapter, chapter 20?
Okay. Workers of the last hour. The Spirit's teachings, the last shall be first, the mission of Spiritists, workers of the Lord. Number 1, the kingdom of heaven is like the father of a family who went out at daybreak in order to hire workers to work in his vineyard. Having agreed with the workers that he would pay them 1 denarius per day, he sent them to the vineyard. He went out again at the 3rd hour of the day, and seeing others who were in the square not doing anything, he said to them, "You go also to my vineyard, and I will give you what is reasonable." And they went there. Again, he went out at the 6th and 9th hours of the day and did the same. And having gone out at the 11th hour, he found others who were without anything to do and said to them, "Why have you stood around all day without working?" They told him that it was because no one had hired them. He then said to them, "You two go to my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to the one who was taking care of his business, "Call the workers and pay them, from the last to the first." Thus, those who had not come to the vineyard except when the 11th hour was near received 1 denarius each. Those who were hired first came in their turn, believing they would be given more, but each one received no more than 1 denarius. Upon receiving it, they complained against the father of the family, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who bore the load and heat of the day." But in response, he said to one of them, "My friend, I have done you no wrong. Did you not agree with me on 1 day denarius for your day's work? Take what belongs to you and go. As for me, I wish to give to the last as much as to you. Is it not permitted to me to do what I want? And is your eye evil because I am good? Thus the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. For many are called, but few are chosen."
We, we say here in this parable some differentiations. And the new paradigm that Christ brought to us. And when he said that I have not to deny the laws, but to reinforce them, we see here some of the aspects. I found out there was another parable among us, the Jewish people. I believe it's in somewhere in Leviticus. I thought the truth, did not have time to look for it well. But that parable is somewhat close to this one that Jesus said, with some alterations. In that parable, the first one of the First Testament, there was a king who had many workers, but he had one worker that was with him for many years. And when it was time to pay the workers, the king went quickly and gave the payment to all the workers. And then he said, "Now I have to dedicate my time to this worker that have been with me for many years." And that work was rewarded a lot more than the others. There was in that parable a significant, powerful moral teaching that was good for that time. Oh, what, like 2,000 years before Christ, something like that. There was a great progress for us at that time. And again, I insist and say for us. I'm not saying for those people. We are those people. We spirits reincarnate multiple times in this planet in the same path of maturation, of purification. We are those spirits. So it's not they were. No, it's we were. Okay, and I think this is very important here. That moral teaching of resiliency, of fidelity, of faith to remain with the king for many, many, many years was something important at that time. It is today. It is not less important today. But Christ brings a new paradigm. I have to see here. And how does it start the parable? It's like a father. Before was the king. Now is the one that is in our household, is the one that embraces us, that we can embrace, the one who consoles us, that is with us, a father, something close to us. It's no longer the king that is something untouchable or something that you have to keep a distance, something that judges and commands and demands. Now it's a father, okay? And also had many workers. But when it's time to reward the workers, rewards everyone equally. There is a sense of equality. And that's perhaps I'm making that jump over here. That's why Jesus has to say to hear that some got upset. Wait a minute, I'm working for many hours and you're gonna give me the same the guy who works few hours? I'm here all day in the sun doing all this work for 12 hours. The guy come here and work for 1 hour and get the same? Because there was at that time that idea. And that time does it not happen today equally? You know, that I work 3 hours, I have to get paid 3 times more than someone who get paid 1 hour. It's those simple mathematics, right? Christ brings this new paradigm that the reward is qualitative, not quantitative. The reward is not something that someone gives to you, but that you give to yourself. That satisfaction that you gain for working for the Father, for doing God's will. How could you expect to get more than someone else if the reward is indeed self-giving? How God's love could be more for one than for another if God loves everyone equally. So you see here in the different shades of this parable, this very important parable, the new paradigm, and what we struggle so much today to understand. Perhaps we are more close to understand, to accept the very first parable a few thousand years before Christ than the one that he brings to us. That was still so concentrated that if I work for 3 hours, I have to get 3 times someone who work for 1 hour. Because we want to see the things in a quantitative way, things that can be measured, quantified, and especially with a dollar sign preferable, of course. When we're going to grow up and accept this new paradigm, that the great value of things is of us that was inside of us, is the reward that we get internally that cannot be quantified, cannot be qualified. It's a very powerful parable that Christ brings to us. So, and then there is a matter of timing also, right? Is 1 hour more important than the hour? The day has 24 hours. Is 1 hour more important than the other? Does 1 hour carries more value than the other? Is the one who woke up and start working at one time more valuable than the one that woke up at another hour and start working on that hour? Or the result of their labor is equal in the construction of a better world for all of us? The power of the workers. There is one proverb. Which heat is the more important? So let's say that we're going to break a block of a rock with a hammer, and you have to keep hammering that block, right? And you start hit 1, hit 2 with a big strong hammer, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 100th it breaks. Which hit was the more important? Was that the 100th one? Could that 100th one that we did be successful without the 99 before? Can we say that which one was the 37th, the 58th? Which one was the most important, the most powerful? Or were they all equal importance to reach that objective of being able to break that block of rock? The construction of the kingdom of God is the same thing. All equal, all important. Each one comes at one time. The 99th could not come before the 97th. Each one has its time, each one has its importance, and each one is equally important, because the objective is one and only, to break that rock. The objective of the Father or the King is the same, is to bring happiness to humankind. That's why God created those laws, divine laws, as we see in the Spirit's book. So this new paradigm of Jesus is extremely powerful. But, and again, see Kardec, they put this chapter right after faith. Without that reasonable foundation, that faith, it becomes very hard to accept the fact that I work for 10 hours and I get paid the same amount as the guy who gets paid for 1 hour. We have to have faith with foundation, with reason, to accept and be content, be very happy, not only for what I have got, but for what the guy who just work 1 hour also gets. Comments? Okay, let's go then.
But Elmo, boy, this is very hard to grasp and to absorb. I mean, the analogy of the breaking the rock, and I see that the pay for the workers. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around. to accept that the 11th hour, the person who comes at the 11th hour receives the same as the person who labored all the hours. I guess it's something we just have to work towards to understand this and to be part of our lives. But it is very difficult to grasp.
It is. It's very hard to come to accept it, and we should not just take it because it's in the book. But as I said, work on it, okay? And of course, most of us have had to work very hard on it to come to grasp that. And to me, what kind of helped me is the statement, because again, we can break this thing down. And one thing that I did not comment is that the workers were waiting for the invitation. The workers were not perhaps ready to start the work at that time. They had to wait for the invitation. If they had been called earlier, they would have started earlier. If it doesn't say here, say, oh, those are lazy, they didn't want to work until the last hour because they just want to work for an hour, I got paid as everybody else, then I would be jumping like crazy and I agree with you 100%. But I'm here waiting for my opportunity. When I am matured spiritually enough to be invited to participate in this project to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. And once the invitation comes, I do work on it. And how could my reward be less or more than anyone else who is now living in this heaven on earth, so to say? It's the same for everyone. It's the goodness is comparable to everyone. It's equal to everyone. It is because we see the reward is still in a quantified and not in a qualified way. We count the dollar sign, perhaps, okay, and we count time-wise. And again, I mean, the hours are equal. The time that you work, if you get up and start work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock in the morning, if you are equally productive, you are equally productive 6 a.m. or at 3 p.m. Each one you have the time to start in accordance with the Father who comes and invites one when one is ready to start. But that is indeed hard, especially in our society, to grasp.
Yeah. I think if we move away from the physical and start and think about the spiritual, it may make more sense in the sense of on our spiritual evolution, we are all on different paths. But once we reach perfection, we are all the same. It doesn't matter if I arrive today or in 1,000 years. Those that arrive there will be equal to me. So we are all equal once we reach perfection in terms of the work and the progress. So it doesn't matter at what time we arrive there. In eternity, that's not something that is relevant. So that will help a little bit make more sense, because if we think of work in the physical sense that, I worked 8 hours, you worked 1 hour, and we got paid the same. That's not fair. It's very hard to understand. We have to go beyond the physical. We have to think of a spiritual evolution. And I think that's what Jesus wanted to bring to us, was the spiritual evolution. Once we reach a certain point, we are all the same. We are all perfect like him. And the reward is the same. It doesn't matter when we arrive there. It's work in direct connection with the Creator. I think that makes a little bit more easy to understand, but I agree with you, Wayne. Whenever we read this, it's hard. it's hard for us still to make sense because we are too much still attached to material things, physical things.
Yeah, and we see here in the differentiation of the first parable of the king who reward the one that was there for a long time, the ones, I don't know, a few thousand years before Christ, and Christ brings this new paradigm of bringing us as the level of the spirituality now. Because purely on the materiality, what's necessary to teach it at us at that point is that you have to make justice here. Those who maintain fidelity with me, those who stay with me for long, who resist all the temptations to live here and go work for somewhere else, who you get paid more. This guy will be rewarded. It was necessary in a very physical mind, material mind that you had at that time, right? So you're not gonna ask, let's say, an union member just going through this nurse strikes right now, that they accept this concept. No, in our physical world, and it should be, of course, the guy who works more should get paid more. The guy who has seniority should perhaps have a little bit more privilege and benefits than the guy who just starting now. If you're working for that company for 30 years, I would expect that you have some more benefits, some more privilege than the guy who was just starting right now. It's just fair. But what Christ is saying that you got that, you understand that, let's move one step above. Let's put us at that spiritual level now. And when we see ourselves as a spiritual being more than just a material being, then things are much more equitable, much more the same level as long as you apply equally. And we are talking about here not to produce cars in a factory, but to produce happiness to all humankind, following the divine laws. How can one worker be more important than another worker? How do you build that work? Slowly, time by time, each one at its time. Again, the hit of the hammer in 98 can only come after the 97, after the 96. And that hit of 98 is just as good as the 96 and the 97, because the objective is common. The effort is equal. And the reward is actually internal, not external. But yes, for our world, for us to live this materialized mind that we had yet, we are more likely to stick with the first parable of with the king than one that Jesus brings to us as no longer king, but a father. But it is hard. Why? Because we are so conditioned to this world that we live today. Any more comments, questions? Okay, can read number 2 now.
Okay. The last shall be first. Number 2. The workers of the last hour have a right to their wages. Their willingness has to have put them at the disposal of the master who is to hire them. Hardiness must not have been the result of laziness or ill will. They have a right to their wages because since daybreak, they have been waiting impatiently for someone who would finally call them to work. They were hardworking, they only lacked work. However, if they had refused work at each hour of the day, if they had said, let us be patient, repose is pleasing, when the last hour sounds, it will be time to think about today's wages. What need is there for us to inconvenience ourselves for a master whom we neither know nor respect? The later, the better. These, my friends, would not have received the wages of work, but that of laziness. that would have become of these workers? What would have become of these workers if instead of only remaining idle, they had used the hours of the day meant for labor to commit blameworthy acts? If they had blasphemed God by spilling the blood of their brothers and sisters, by causing problems among families, by ruining those who trusted them, by abusing the innocent, or by indulging in all the enormities of humanity, what would have become of them? Would it have been enough for them to have said at the last hour, "Sir, we have used our time badly. Use us until the end of the day so that we may do a little, although it would be very little of our part. But give us the wages of a worker of goodwill." No, no, the master would have said to them, "I do not have any work for you right now. You have squandered your time. You have forgotten what you have learned, and you no longer know how to work in my vineyard. Therefore, begin to learn once more. And when you are more willing, come to me, and I will open my vast field to you, where you will be able to work at all hours of the day." Good Spiritist, my dearly beloved, you are all workers of the last hour. The one who says, "I began work at daybreak and I will finish only at nightfall," will be very proud. You all came when you were called, some a little earlier, some a little later, to the incarnation whose shackles you bear. However, for how many centuries has the Lord been calling you to his vineyard without your wanting to enter it? Now is the time for you to receive your wages. Employ the time you have remaining well, and never forget that your existence, no matter how long it may seem to you, is only a fleeting instant in the immensity of time comprising eternity for you. Constantine, protect the spirit.
I think in this passage, it helps us to understand a little bit of that passage. That the work of the last hour have a right for their wage, but their willingness has to have put them at the disposal of the master who was to hire them. And it's not that they were not willing to work, it's that they have to wait their time to be called. Is it possible that some have been invited and chose not to do it? Yes. Did they get paid? No. Is that possible that some have been invited and rejected the call and opposed to it and fight against what being offered? It is possible. So they did not get the wage, they did not get what they were supposed to receive. Is it possible that we have been called and chose not to follow, and that's why you are the workers of the last hour? Or is it really our first call? I think the reasonable thing is perhaps we have delayed to accept the invitation and start to walk in to receive the wages that we deserve when you do the work. Is it possible there are still some out there not ready for the invitation, and what that means? That they had not liberated themselves enough for materiality, for the animal instinct to accept a more of our spiritual reality, and are still too densely connected to the things of matter, and therefore you need to hang out here a little longer, perhaps to multiple reincarnations, purify ourselves a little more in order to receive that invitation. Those who choose to act in evil, to act against all those natural laws, you think anyone would them would be invited? I don't think so. But or waiting for, they would have to wait for the time when they are invited. They would have to go to the processes of purification that requires them to be invited, that requires them to be dressed with the nuptial tunic in order to enter to that feast. You can tie all Jesus' parables in this passage over here. Chances are that being here, 2023, being exposed to a lot of things in life, to the very first parable of the king that rewards one more than others, just at the time, being exposed to these teachings here, that we are now, the work of the last hour, that we are now ready for this invitation, to accept this invitation and go and do the work, that it's up to us to do it. But no one is forced to accept anything. No one is obliged to enter and do the work. But it's not up to us to say, okay, now I want to do it. Open the door, I'm ready to work. And they'll say, wait a minute. This is an invitation thing. You do the work out there. You purify yourself out there. You elevate yourself beyond the pure materiality of your existence. And when you see there are fit, you'll be invited. And then you accept it or not. Does it mean that the invitation is only for the pure? No. It's for the ones who are in the process of continue that purification without deviation. It's like I always make a comparison with the martial arts, the true martial arts, not the fighting things, in which you go to the change of colors of your belt, right? White, yellow, green, and then you become a black belt, and then you say, oh, now I have reached perfection. No. Now you have start. Now you're being invited to learn the real thing. Now you have progressed enough that we can start to teach you things that the others are not able to learn because it's way too uninvolved. So I think that the invitations of come from those who have progressed enough that are now able to get into that kingdom and be a productive worker in that kingdom moving forward. And again, the kingdom of God is not for God. God doesn't need anything from us. It's for us. Everything that is done is for our happiness. It's for our peace. God doesn't need it. God has this plan for us to live in happiness, serving God, because that is the ultimate, the absolute perfection according to spirits, right? What is the absolute happiness? Absolute happiness is to receive the command directly from God and execute it. You're not talking about that yet, but to reach that level that now we can start moving in that direction in a more consistent and objectively way, where we can become black belts. Now we can start to learn the real martial arts. At that time, we receive the invitation. Now we can walk away, say, no, black belt is good enough for me. I want to go any farther from this. and you go banging heads until you come to the realization that there is something much more important, much more of much greater value, and then we'll accept the invitation when it comes the next time around. But again, it's not up to you to walk and knock the door and say, I'm ready, take me. Divine law, divine justice know exactly when you are ready, and the invitation will not delay a second when you are ready for it. Comments, questions? Number 3.
Okay, number 3. Jesus loved the simplicity of symbols, and in his powerful language, the workers who came at the first hour of Moses, prophets, and all the initiators who marked the stages of progress that has been continued down through the centuries by the apostles, martyrs, and church fathers, learned individuals, philosophers, and finally, spiritists. Spiritists, the last to arrive, have been announced and foretold since the coming of the Messiah, and they will receive the same recompense. But what am I saying? A greater recompense? As the last to arrive, spiritist prophet from the intellectual endeavors of their predecessors, because humans must inherit from humans, and their endeavors and results are collective. God blesses solidarity. Furthermore, many among them are alive again today or will come back in the future to complete the work they had formerly begun. More than one patriarch, more than one prophet, more than one disciple of Christ, more than one disseminator of Christian faith may be found among spiritists. However, they are now more enlightened, more advanced, no longer working on the foundation, but on the top floor of the building. Their wages, therefore, will be the proportion to the merit of the work. Reincarnation, that wonderful tenet, both immortalizes and defines spiritual affiliation, called to give an accounting of its earthly mandate. The spirit understands the continuity of the task, interrupted by always resumed once again. It sees and senses that it has seized in its flight the thought of its predecessors. It enters the arena again, matured by experience to advance a little more. And all workers of the first and of the last hour, with their eyes opened to the profound justice of God, no longer complain, but simply worship. This is one of the true meanings of this parable, like all the parables that Jesus addressed to the people. Beneath this form and images, it contains the seed of the future, as well as the revelation of that magnificent unity that harmonizes all things in the universe, and that solidarity that reconnects all present brings to the past and present.
In the future. Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
I think with this passage, it brings the concept of reincarnation very strongly to us. And the idea of this equality of the reward becomes easier to understand, I think. So let's go to Stephen, no? of the book Paul and Stephen, the Jewish man was extremely faithful to the huge Jewish scriptures, was a strongly follower, tremendous respect to it, have strongly understood the scriptures of the time. And because he had that strong foundation on its true moral teachings, and again, let's go to the true moral teachings of those scriptures of the time. Once the new paradigm was presented to him, the teachings of Christ, he got it. He understood it. He became a follower. He was able to reason and to transcend from one thing that was very good and very important to a new to a new thing that Christ was bringing, not to eradicate the others, but to complement, to bring us one step above of was, because we're ready for it. And that was at that time. And then we had someone, let's say like Emmanuel, right? Was exposed to those teachings, to his wife, as the senator Publio Lentus, who had the opportunity to meet Christ, who heard from Christ himself. We may follow me now. It's up to you, but you follow me now or in 1,000 years. And went through all the struggles. We see the multiple reincarnations of the one that we now know as Emmanuel, but you could know with different names. He gave us his own example. Do we think that the reward for having gathered, for have chose to follow, for have chose to accept the invitation, is more for Stephen, or for Emmanuel, or for Joana de Angelis, or for Chico Xavier? Do you think that any one of them have gained something more than the others? Or they had the opportunity to enjoy that reward for a longer time because they applied themselves at an earlier time and received that invitation at earlier time and accept that invitation at an earlier time, and now they are able to enjoy that reward that is equal to all who accept and follow for a longer time. They chose to minimize the time of suffering. Just personal choice that we make. So I think when you use those examples and this process of reincarnations that the Spirit brings to us here, it makes us easy to understand that Stephen, Emmanuel, Joana de Angelis, I think if you ask them who gets more, I don't think that's it's pretty much the same. But we know chronologically, some have enjoyed that for longer than others because they applied themselves earlier than others. So I think that Stephen, Emmanuel, but the reward is the same. I don't think God came to Stephen and say, oh, we start to already be with me longer, I'm going to give you more than I gave to Emmanuel. But Stephen has started enjoying that reward a little bit earlier. And that, of course, for those who believe in time, like as I do, and not the great minds, intellect minds, who reject the idea of time, right? Because if you eliminate time, then the rewards absolutely equal at all times. And then personally, it defines even reincarnation. But that's me again. I can't go against the great minds who are able to create equations with a bunch of Greek signs that they deny the existence of time. In this reincarnation process, we are going through exactly that. Having all the opportunities given to us to reach a level that we will accept the invitation, we will enter in that kingdom, and then the reward will be equal to everyone. And again, once you reach perfection, it's like that pyramid, right? That perfect triangle, that the base is ample and a great distance between point A and point B, but at the very apex, where it's perfection, There is no differentiation, basically. The distance between point A and point B is basically null. So when we reach perfection, we will be still individualized intelligent principle, still individualized spirit, but it'll be so much equal to one another, because how much different can we be in imperfection? It's abstracted conversation, of course. So as we evolve, we move up in that pyramid from a very ample, large base, moving upwards towards the middle. That's why the truth is in the middle, right? We become more equal and equal and equal and equal and equal and equal and equal, and the differentiation becomes very minimal until almost hard to see it. And that's what means that the reward's pretty much the same, because they all move in the same direction to equalize everything. And if that is movement towards perfection, why God, who is the perfection, provides different rewards to one another, who fulfills his will? It doesn't make sense, reasonably speaking. And reincarnation is exactly the opportunity for us. Just like Stephen, just like Emmanuel, start to follow Christ. Don't wait another 1,000 years or 2,000 years, they have eternity ahead. But once you get, then the reward is equal for everyone who get it. Accept the invitation and do the work. Comments, questions? 12:30, right on the dot.
Okay. So tomorrow is the Martin Luther King, so SGNY will be closed. We won't have our regular Monday meetings. Next Sunday is the study of the Mediums book. Okay. That's it. Carol, you do a final prayer?
Certainly. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, John. And thank you, everybody, for being here and taking part in our studies of the gospel, our chapter being of faith and workers of the last hour. Excuse me. Infinite creator and supreme intelligence, divine providence as well. We give thanks to be together today for our studies of the gospel. We have learned that proactive faith is a great virtue and leads us to hope and to charity. Faith with sincere knowingness and heart provides endurance, strength, and forward momentum to reach an objective. Faith can be applied to earthly and spiritual aspirations. Faith is both human and divine. The merit of work is rewarded externally and spiritually. Our attitude and conviction and our faith is vital in order to progress according to the natural laws, to help us be productive, more content, and happy. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits and the mentors, for providing inspiration and guidance during our studies. We are grateful for this wisdom and the lessons that we can apply. We know that faith is a very important part of our studies. We continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies in mindfulness, knowing that we are never alone, that wisdom is always there as we ask and as we apply faith and our forward momentum. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us to help us, to improve us, to help us do the goodness in life that is so needed during this time, this paradigm shift. We are grateful for all we have received today and will continue to receive throughout the year, throughout our studies, throughout our lessons, and the exchange that we have. We humbly ask now for safety and protection as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves to be beacons of light, and may we go forth now in peace, in love, and in light. So be it.